everyone. As I get deeper and deeper into my research on figuring out what the future holds for all of us, I have a very dear friend and an expert in the building material space, Akhilesh Chitlangia, joining me here from Delhi. Akhilesh, thank you so much for doing this. And I'm really looking forward to understanding how the landscape of manufacturing and materials is going to evolve over the next couple of years. So, really looking forward to your insights.
Thank you for that. Yeah,
let's jump right into this, Akhilesh.
let's
So,
just jump right into it. Yeah.
If you could just open up by sharing a little bit about your background and what it is
Sure.
that you do and what your firm does.
Right. So I'm a third gen entrepreneur. We are in the plywood manufacturing space. This is a 67th year in business. Our company is Duroply Industries Limited. We're the oldest plywood brand in the industry today. Personally, my schooling was in Calcutta, La Martiniere for boys. Then for college, undergrad, I went to Boston University. Undergrad, I have a dual degree in business management and economics. Now I'm based out of Delhi. I'm the executive director and COO of the organization. And so I'm basically responsible for the day-to-day running of the organization and ensuring that the organizations, become future-proof as much as possible. That's what I do on a daily basis.
Okay, great. So I'm glad you're working on making the business future proof because that's exactly what we're going to talk about. So as you think about being future proof as a company, firstly, why do you think it's even important to have this discussion, think about being future proof from your perspective?
Yeah, so you just look at the speed at which technology is changing. Interpersonal behaviors are changing. The last 5-10 years, we've seen a sea change, right? Every 10 years there would be a generational change. Now, if you look at kids, every 5 years there's a generational change. And working career of people, they get into the workforce at about 25, they retire at 60. And if every 5 to 7 years there's going to be a change in the thought process, the way people work with each other, systems, culture, diversity within the organization has to be built, keeping this rapid change of human, I won't say skills, but human habits or preferences going into the future. If we don't start working on it today, I will not be able to recruit talent in my organization 5 years later or 10 years later. And it'll be very easy. आजकल के तो बच्चे ऐसे हैं, आजकल के तो लोग ऐसे. No, आजकल ये ऐसे ही है. We have to find a way of keeping ourselves relevant to it. And I think a lot of things, what people who are coming to the workforce today and going forward, they're not going to be driven by money alone because they've reached a certain level of security in their lives. This is the fourth generation or fifth generation coming into work post-independence. So needs are different. Now you go to any hill station or you go to any offbeat place, you only see youngsters on laptops and working from home. They're like, they don't care. The needs are very different today.
You're saying that the generation has shifted,
Yeah.
how they look at jobs has shifted. And actually, what I found really interesting about what you said is from your perspective, it's not just the product or the services. You're thinking about the organization as a whole and how you run it in terms of what the future is going to bring and how you will need to adapt your organization for that.
Absolutely.
Okay, terrific. Okay, great. Awesome. Thank you for opening with that very, very strong statement. As you think about future proofing your organization, what are some of the factors that you see as major influences in future proofing?
So I said first thing was building a culture where we can able to hire talent, retain talent. Second is consumer behavior, consumer preferences, how they're interacting with materials in their day-to-day lives with each other, everything that's changing. I don't know where this will go 10 to 15 years from now explicitly. But one thing that's going to change is that what's happening today is not going to be relevant 5 years from now. The way we did business 5 years ago is not how we're doing business today. The business model is evolving on a daily basis. And so keeping track of what your customers are asking of you, that's very important. Like I'll give you one insight. We work with a lot of carpenters, because they're the ones who use plywood. Now, every carpenter today, even if he's a second gen carpenter, you ask him what do you want your child to do, they all want the child to become an architect. They all want their child to become an interior designer or an, right? Now the father is pushing the child's education in that direction. And I have this insight because we survey a lot of carpenter contractors. Where is the next crop of carpenters going to come who's going to make the furniture?
Sure.
Furniture can't be fully automated because India requires a lot of bespoke solution. And where that's going to come from. And if we are able to start working on that now, which is a project that we will be starting soon, on skilling people and then getting into this space of carpentry and then going down to tier 6, tier 7, like गांव-गांव से जाके निकालने पड़ेंगे because
Hmm.
youth is there. No one's reached out to them and invested in them. So
Yeah.
you have to start looking at your supply chain as a whole, where it will be 15 years from now, and what's going to be a big challenge in there. And of course, technology changes, so people within the industry have to also change with. Uh,
So when you're saying technology changes, what
yeah,
kind of changes are you seeing in terms of tech? Everyone talks about AI, ML, big data. We hear all these buzzwords, but what technology are you seeing specifically impacting your sector?
all right. So a lot of design that interior designers, architects are making today, they've started using AI to help them. Um, what where that's also going is a lot of furniture manufacturers have cropped up in India, which was not there previously, and somehow they are trying to figure out. They've not done it as yet. Trying to figure out how AI is going to help them get their manufacturing time reduced by half. So those are, I think, spaces that definitely in the building material space from a furniture perspective is
Mhm.
going to change. I met an architect and he built a model for the government of India, which keeping in mind which city you are in, which latitude, longitude you're in, the amount of rainfall historically you've been receiving, what is the predictive amount of rainfall that's going to come, what is the sun angle in that city. And based on that, they started doing some prediction of what material should be used so that the heating and cooling requirements of the building significantly reduces. So if it's a western facing building and the sun comes in from a very low angle in the western part of the country, now if you know you're living in Mumbai and Vibha, you're in Mumbai, if your house is west facing in the afternoon at like 2 o'clock in the afternoon to 6, 7 in the evening, it's impossible to have that window open without the curtains drawn in, right?
Mm.
Because sun is so strong. Uh, so how do you work with materials? How do you work with designs? How do you use AI to or any kind of predictive modeling to figure out what's going to be the trend in the next 15, 20 years and materials that can reduce your heating or cooling requirements of a building? I think that's something that's very cool that's happening in our industry. Uh,
Mm.
I'm
Okay.
not directly involved in it because we're just a material supplier in that space, but
Sure.
that's a conversation that's happening.
Okay. Let's talk about your specific sector. So
Yeah.
then, if technology is not directly, so to speak, impacting your supply chain in that sense, what about sustainability? Are you seeing that as a
Absolutely. So look, if you look at why, people have been talking about sustainability for donkey years, but in reality, being sustainable was not economically viable a while back. Today it is. Now, whether it's the solar industry, or whether it's green materials that are ecologically more environmentally friendly, they are becoming more and more economical by the day, right? And so from a business perspective, uh, there is a return on your investment. You can see that, okay, in 5 years, 4 years, 3 years, whatever, I'll recover because cost savings are there. I think this is going to become faster and faster.
can
And
you elaborate on that a little bit more? Like, how are you seeing cost savings and like what is actually going on?
so, okay, um, plastic has started being used in packaging. They found a usage of plastic in packaging. Now, specifically in my industry, in the plywood space, if I talk about wood, timber, we used to be heavily dependent on forests. Um, over the last 10, 15 years, we figured out that plantation timber is easier to work with. There's no deforestation. Plantation timber also means that you're creating jobs for your farmers. The timber takes 8 years to get to maturity. Now we're working with farmers that if you're in a particular part of the country, what is the sapling, what is the genetic code of the sapling that's required, which requires the least amount of water, yet gives the right amount of density, and it's going to keep the land fertile over long term. There are NGOs, there are government departments that are working on educating and making this a self-sustaining model. which is something in understanding that didn't exist 10 years ago. Um, and now we're tracking, there are these companies that are tracking what is this, where timber is going to be available going forward in the future in India as well as abroad. Through a plantation model, they're trying to map out, where the trees are being planted at what rate and, what it is. So there's a tech play that's definitely coming in this side, which has a very strong sustainability angle as well. Because if I know today that in 10 years' time, there's going to be a good amount of timber available in a particular part of the country, it helps us in making decisions of where we want to invest for a future manufacturing capabilities based on that. And
Okay,
of
so you said a bunch of things. You said location-wise, there is some predictive modeling coming through,
yes.
and you touched upon some sort of genetic sampling
Yeah.
of.
So, like every tree, just because a tree is called neem, for example, not every neem ka ped is a neem ka ped, right? It's like we Indians are very varied. A person from South India is very different from a North Indian. A West Indian is very different from the person in the East or the Northeast. So they're but we're all Indian. So it's a kind of something similar. So there's a genetic code to every tree. There's a small change in the DNA, and certain timbers, although of the same species, require less water or more water. They require certain amount of minerals to be in the soil, which then works for them in that area, or it doesn't work for them in that area. इसमें बहुत, I think farmers lost a lot of money over the last 5-10 years. There's been a lot of learning that's come out of it. People from industries that rely on timber as a source of raw material, and it's not the plywood industry or the wood-based industry, it's also the paper industry.
Mm.
They've done a lot of research. As in, the paper industry definitely has done a lot of research on this part, and they've gone and guided farmers that given the soil, given the climatic conditions, what is the genetic code of a particular species of timber that they should be growing, which works for the industry and works for the farmer as well.
I see. Okay, cool. And are you seeing this from a consumer perspective as well? So you walked us through the initial phases, right?
Yeah.
What from a consumer perspective?
Consumers are getting more and more conscious. They do ask about what's the source of material, how is it sustainable. There's always a growing concern with the way temperatures are rising, the way um, climatic cycles are going off. People are becoming more and more concerned about it, but it's a very small section of the society in India that is still concerned about sustainability. um, I think we have a very long way to go. I think the conversation on sustainability over the next 10-15 years is going to change. But the bigger question is, it's very easy to stamp that I'm a sustainable company or my product is sustainable. There's no way a consumer can actually know whether what a company is claiming is genuinely right or wrong. And hence, there's a lot of distrust
Mm.
towards organic or sustainable.
Yeah.
And somewhere technology, if someone can figure out a tech solution to this, which I do know that the government of India is trying to work something on this. But if someone can figure this out and it can be rolled out on mass scale, it'll be, you know, it'll be very helpful from the consumer's perspective.
Okay, great. So then let's now segue into, you touched upon a little bit on government and a little bit on legalities, right? Saying how do you know that this is actually officially, and is there are there legalities around this? So from your perspective, what sort of changes do you think need to come in terms of policy making, governance, legislation, such that over the next 15 years you see some sort of structured organizational growth?
So, Vibha, I'll touch upon it. I won't be able to give you a very long-term view because we don't work directly with the government. One project we have been working with the government is slightly unrelated, but I'll just tell you how the government is working today. Um, we've all heard of the Bureau of Indian Standards, BIS, right? And
Yeah.
every product in India is supposed to be sold with an ISI code. Now, there's a 90% rampant misuse of the ISI code in the plywood industry. I'm only speaking about from our industry perspective. We've been working with the government to reform the entire segment, and now the government's coming out with the rule that over the next 1 to 3 years, everything in India, whether it's plywood or any other material sold in India, must conform to a BIS code. They must have a BIS license, any manufacturing unit. And if you're importing the product from abroad, whatever the material is being manufactured, that unit needs to be um, registered with the government and the Bureau of Indian Standards. They need to have a license. Now, why are they doing this? It's very simple because they realize that before they can do any change and ensure this full transparency, they need to have controls in place or a tracking mechanism in place across the entire value chain. Um, Simple thing, what do people say? कि tariffs बढ़ा दो, import कम हो जाएगा, right? But that's not the solution. Because the moment you increase tariffs, you're going to screw the economy over because if there's a demand in the country, you're not going to be able to get it in. And
Mm.
number two, you're going to allow some kind of shady uh, practices happening at work to avoid the tariffs. By going on the quality perspective, that yes, the material coming to India has to be of a certain standard, and they are going to have a tech play around this. It's not clear what the policy of the government is going to be, but over the next 1 year, it'll become very clear. Um, so they are going to create an ecosystem where if you're not making products up to a particular standard, it's going to be impossible to be sold in India. And I
Mm.
think they're going to take that tech and then roll it and just build on it over the next 5 to 7 years. It's something what they've done with Aadhaar, linking with PAN, and then the UPI model, right? It is a build up of that tech stack, and I think that's going to happen on this front, and sustainability is going to be a part of it.
You see that coming.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. They're building something which we can't imagine.
Yeah, but
Um,
something you can't imagine.
yeah,
Okay, but they're factoring in sustainability and source.
100%. So the last 5 years itself, the government of India for the building material space has come out with something called a GREHA certification.
Okay.
I don't know if you've heard of this in the past or not. Okay. So if you're doing a government project anywhere in India, if it's a central government project, and your material as a brand has to be specified by the Griha Council. So you have to go register, submit your whatever documents that they require to get yourself listed that you're an ecological product, and then you get some points on it, and then there is some requirement that the government building has to have a certain amount of sustainability angle on it. So that work has already started. And on top of this, they're going to do something on the tech side, which is going to make it easier for the consumers going forward. That's
Okay.
one thing I'm sure is going to happen. Uh, yeah, how it will happen, I don't know, but it's happening for sure.
Okay, and you see this coming through in the next 4 or 5 years,
At the yeah, even faster,
even faster.
even faster.
Okay, and this is more to weed out the unorganized sector. Is that the
Uh, I
process?
don't think it's to weed out unorganized sector. It's to push the unorganized sector to become organized. See, no
Okay.
one wants to weed anyone out, right? Because we are a growing population. There's so much demand. We just hit the 2,500 per capita GDP mark. So, and talking about making the 10 trillion, $15 trillion
Fine.
industry,
Mm.
country. That's only going to happen if the backend systems allow for ease of business to happen, ease of getting the right product at the right price to happen. Otherwise, it's not going to happen.
Mm.
Um, you look at what they did with UPI, right? It's become so easy to make any transaction. You don't need to carry a wallet anywhere. Now, no one would have thought of this 5 years, 7 years ago. When Demo was announced, no one would have thought something in 6 years' time we'll be sitting on technology like this.
Mm. Okay. So you're saying it's an initiative to bring a lot of transparency into the system.
100%. A lot of transparency is coming into the system. It's going to become a lot easier to transact, do business, and get things out in the market.
Okay, let's shift to workspaces. In your workspace, it's largely a manufacturing setup. What changes are you seeing coming in the next 10 or 15 years? Are you seeing a lot of automation in the systems? Are you seeing man with machine? When we're thinking 10 or 15 years forward.
Okay, so any manufacturer, as a manufacturing unit, our industry is very labor intensive,
Hmm.
extremely labor intensive. But labor was cheap in India a while back.
Hmm.
It's no longer cheap in India anymore. It's no longer about the question of amount of money you're paying. As people lifestyle, lifestyles are improving, economic strength is improving. They don't want to do hard, rubbish labor work. Uh, in remote locations away from their homes, etc. So a push towards automation is definitely there. Um, we are still always going to be a labor intensive industry, even with a lot of automation. But every day, it's not that we want to get rid of the labor in a plant. We're struggling to hire the right quality of people. And therefore, there's a big shift towards automation that's happening. And that's not only in our industry. If you look at, you walk around any city, you'll see this chota chota dukan, which makes furniture,
Right.
right? Across the country, every city has them. Just go talk to a shopkeeper and say कि हमको ये 5 दिन में टेबल करके दे दीजिए. आज के लोगों के पास समय नहीं है, ये नहीं है, वो नहीं. They'll make every excuse to delay. The reality is he's also struggling with the labor issue.
So if you are struggling with the labor issue, what sort of changes are you seeing in the machinery and the equipment such that you can become less and less reliant on the on human workforces?
In our industry, plywood machinery is not some rocket science. It's a very simple technology which has existed in the Western world in China for donkey years, right? But the innovation that's happening is taking that machinery and with the quality of timber or raw material that has gone down, that innovation is happening on a daily basis by the machine manufacturers. And because labor is expensive, everything from a business angle is a return on capital invested. And on that front, it's just becoming more and more viable. So our entire industry in the last 5 years has gone towards, I would say, from highly non-mechanized or highly labor intensive to probably 30%, 40% automated. And I
Mhm.
think the push towards a 70% automated plant, which is what exists in Europe or exists in China, is where we will be in 5 to 7 years' time.
Ah,
Uh,
okay. You're seeing that
there-
level of
yeah,
change.
yeah, there is. And you can't survive. If you think you're going to run the business the way you're currently running it, you
Mhm.
can't. Labor wages are going up 10, the two hikes that happen a year of 6% on the minimum wages law. How are you going to sustain that? Just model that out for the next 10 years. That if you have a 500 workers and you're paying them $500 a day, just
Mhm.
model out if they get a 6% hike, where your labor cost is going to be 10
Mhm.
years. And it makes no sense to not automate it.
Okay, wow. Okay, great. This is amazing. 70% you're saying 70% dependence on automation, 30% on human labor.
Yes, it's going to come to that.
It's going to come to that. Okay.
Yes.
If you're seeing the workspace move in this direction, what happens to skilling, right? When you look at skilling, if you were to take a macro view and say, okay, here, if this, you seem to have a very, very, very deep insight into your sector. And supposedly this is happening across manufacturing
Absolutely.
at large. How does the government or how does the country think about skilling its manpower, right? What kind of skills do you think people should be going and picking up if
So,
blue collar work is going to become redundant?
which demographic sector do you want me to address this for? The higher end, the mid end, the
Yeah,
low
we
end?
can break it up into the three sectors if you like.
So let's go from right at the bottom, right? Uh, I don't think, I think class 10 pass is bare minimum anyone needs. And then go to an ITI. There's an ITI every corner of this country.
Mm.
Please go to an ITI. We've been late on this as an organization, but we are now going to ITIs to recruit machine operators and the labor at that level.
Just elaborate a little on ITI just for the benefit of everyone listening.
I'm forgetting the full form of ITI. Indian Training Institute, I think.
Okay, so they're basically the training institute set up by the government
Yeah,
on
and basically it's a
vocational.
vocational training. It's not कि आप 3 साल कोई डिग्री विग्री में हो something like that.
Sure.
It's I think 8 to 9 months course. It's a
So you're
vocational.
saying that is a consistent supply for you. So if you need to hire, that's where you would go to
We
hire.
are going to ITIs now simply
Okay,
because by doing that, first you have shown that you're serious about doing काम करना चाहते हो because you invested 7 8 months in yourself.
sure,
Second, a formal training from an institute like an ITI will bring some kind of discipline and work ethics, which is very much needed when you walk into an organization.
sure.
So that is a bare minimum. I think any person at that economic strata level is wanting to come into workforce should do.
Okay,
Uh, Now let's look at the mid-range jobs, which is the blue-collar jobs in a plant or in offices or in the marketing space or whichever other professional space you go into. Um, and I'm talking about annual salaries of like 5 lakh rupees annually to about 12 to 14 lakh rupees annually. I think your biggest skill that you need to bring to workforce is your ability to respect everyone else at work. You're going to meet people who are going to be 20 years elder to you. At some point, you're going to have people in the organization that are going to be 10 years younger to you. You need to understand that the age, the way technology is, everyone's upbringing has been very different.
Sure.
You can't say कि आज के बच्चे ऐसे होते हैं या बड़े लोग तो कुछ समझते नहीं हैं. A workplace is a mixture of all age groups, all income levels, different demographics, and different preferences. You have to find a way of respecting that. I think that's one skill, sadly, is not taught in formal education anywhere. And I think if you don't bring that in with you, you're going to struggle at work. Uh, so that's very important, and it makes it. And the ones who do it well are the ones who actually see a rapid rise in the corporate world.
Sure. And then they know how to sort of tap also into
Even you might be the best in AI, you may know everything that exists in AI today, you may know everything on the tech front, you might be the smartest guy in the room.
Sure.
But an organization is built uh, by the team. It's not built on an individual's performance.
Okay.
And
So basically learning how to respect and also make the best of the high of people who are younger, older within your ecosystem, same age group.
find a way of gelling with everyone. Internal customers are far more important than external customers.
Great. Okay. I love that. Okay. Any other skills for the middle income?
Yeah, keep upgrading yourself,
Okay.
please. There are a lot of free courses online. Walking into an office and saying that I'm not good at Excel today, or I'm not good at making a PowerPoint, or I'm not good at writing, or etc.
Sure.
You're bullshitting yourself. You're bullshitting everyone else. Like, these are the basic skills that you need to have. You need to be very strong with Excel or with writing, content writing, writing how to write a good email at that level. Because I know your formal
Think
education,
content writing is still a skill after ChatGPT 4.
you still need to write something into ChatGPT, right, for it to give something back out to you. And you need to know that what's coming out of it is something that you can copy paste and send it out
And modify as you need.
and
Okay.
modify, right? We know when someone's used ChatGPT
Sure.
to send us an email. We know, like, it's not that suddenly you were writing an email of a particular level,
Sure.
and then but your email is like a rock star. We know that something's going on there, and we appreciate that. But you also need to know what to write. ChatGPT is not going to tell you that this tonality is not right, or you're writing to someone senior and you're not being respectful.
So you're saying essential skills would be general skills in Excel, general basic technology skills, and an ability to write some level of content and at least curate the content.
And analyze content. It's not
Analyze.
about thinking
Okay.
content. You have to analyze what's happening. You have to go into trends. You have to go deep into the subject that you go into. Whichever industry you're working in, whichever field within that industry you're working in, whichever department you're working in, you need to find a way of becoming, I won't say a master at it, but going deep into knowledge and understanding what's there.
Okay.
Otherwise, you're not going to add value to the organization that you're working for.
Okay, cool. So we got the middle income covered. And what about the top 1%, top 2%? Where do you
Again,
see
people skills. People skills. How
people?
you.
Okay.
100%. So look, I'm assuming a lot of people, when you get to the top, you've got the hard skills in place. You know marketing, you know your finance, you know your operations in and out. Two parts at the top. A, how are you going to go and understand what's the bottleneck in your system? If it's your customers, if the challenge is in acquiring more customers, you need to be out in the market, understanding what their what we call the hidden desire or the deep requirements are. Sitting in office, you're not going to get that out. Listening to your people will get you somewhere, but till you don't go and experience what's happening on the shop, on when the consumer is interacting with your products, you're not
Okay.
going to this thing. So that's one.
From a future perspective also, this
From a
because this
future
is
perspective,
currently what you need even today, right? You need to be able to tap into your customer mind, understand him.
you look at Blinkit, what Blinkit has done
Hmm.
5 years ago, or the Dunzo or Blinkit or whatever. It's changed the way things are. I met someone who's in the honey retail business, and they export 90%.
Hmm.
Uh, and 10% from Delhi. And he said their biggest channel is Blinkit today.
Hmm.
Because लोग कहते हैं शहद चाहिए, organic शहद चाहिए. And Blinkit has only 10 brands listed, unlike an Amazon which has hundreds. He said, I get picked off Blinkit and not on Amazon. So
Hmm.
how he figured it out was there was a lot of testing that he did himself.
Sure.
Rely on someone else to do it for him. Yes, he has a team and everything. They run a large organization.
Sure.
That is there. Third is you need to learn how to get the best out of the team.
Okay, so it seems you're very you seem very heavy on people management, people skills. It seems to be.
What can you do without people? Yeah, you
Hmm.
can't. Sorry,
Okay,
that's my perspective.
absolutely. Okay, and in terms of hard skills, if you were to go get a degree today, to be ready for the future, what do you think you would end up studying?
Uh, for sure, I would have done something on AI.
Something AI related?
100%. I still don't know. I'm a technological dinosaur. I feel I'm from like 100 years ago, not from today. But that's a space that I know personally I need to work on myself, because if I don't do it, someone else in my industry is going to do it.
Sure.
Customers are going to take advantage of it, and I'm going to be like a fool not knowing what they're up to. So that's something that we are starting to work on right now. I think
Hmm.
we're a year late, but it's better late than never. Figuring out how AI cannot replace people within your organization, but how AI can make touch points, your processes frictionless, is what I call it.
Hmm.
So every touch point with the consumer, how can you use technology to make that transaction easier? Every time a paper passes around in the office or an approval happens in the office, how can you make that more frictionless? How can you make that easier? How can you use technology to do that? So I think designing technology around business processes, that is something I feel is a extremely important skill that a lot of people miss on. And second is also the type of technology that's going to be there 10 years from now. And
Okay.
how
So if you had to go upskill or go get a degree today, it would be something AI tech related
100%.
to be ready for the future. Okay, cool. As we're tapering down and sort of reaching the end of the session, in terms of the future, if if you had to map the future, what areas do you see new jobs emerging in? Are you seeing new sectors? Are you seeing new job categories? Are you seeing new job titles which don't even exist today?
A very traditional company, Vibha, so job titles, so we are also struggling with. But okay, so look at the EV industry, right? 5 years ago, it was nowhere. It's becoming like the battery replacement industry is going to be huge. All these cars, the scooters are going to require battery replacement. How do you do the waste management? Uh, you know, uh, that's going to be critical. Also, businesses that have done very well over the last 5, 7 years, new age businesses, they've been very hyper local, um, right? And as hyper local as you can be, because we have insane population density in India. I'm talking from an Indian perspective.
Hmm.
Um, how can you go solve a problem for even a small community, a small mohalla? If there's a problem that exists, then you can solve it. That is where it's going to give you an insight on how to build your business out. That is where jobs are going to get created. um, Traditional businesses like ours, legacy business, will continue being there. But jobs are going to come out of uh, traditional or new age businesses solving hyper local.
Always for hyper local. Okay.
Uh, and there's going to be a lot of work in marketing,
Hmm.
not in sales, but in marketing. I think India as a country has been very weak in marketing.
Hmm.
I think through what happened in COVID and people did a lot of online courses, they understood what marketing is. I'm seeing a very big change in how organizations view the marketing department. Pre-COVID, we had a marketing department of 2 people. Now we
Hmm.
have a marketing department of 20 and we're hiring 20 more people. We're not investing that much in our sales force, but we're investing that not even in our plans as much as we are investing in the marketing side, because that's one department that can get the cost of customer acquisition down
Down. Hmm.
drastically, which has significant impact on profitability. So that's one division within our organization that definitely we are hiring very aggressively, and I think a lot of companies are. And same is going to be with tech space.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you. That was very helpful, insightful. Last question, just as you close the interview, if you'd have to give any advice to young people watching this interview, and wondering and being anxious about what the future holds for them, what advice would you give them?
Um. Okay. So give wherever you go in. It's common mindset that I've seen coming in is that मेरे को क्या मिल रहा है मैं तो इतना काम कर रहा हूँ, right? Business is making so much more profits, etc. First of all, please understand a business exists to make profits. If a business is making healthy amount of profits, they're going to keep investing into the future of the country, future of the industry, right? That's why businesses need to make profits. Second is, yes, a work-life balance is extremely important. Um, but you need to find a way of being passionate about what you do. Work in organizations where you can resonate with the vision, mission of the organization. And even if you're not, give it some patience, give it some time, try to understand what's going on. Don't lose patience in 3 months. कि मुझे समझ में नहीं आ रहा है, 6 months, it's not out for me. It takes time. And if you're 24, 25, entering the workspace today, please realize you need to be in the workspace for 56 for another 25 years at the very least, unless you go start, even if you go start something off on your own 10 years down the line, is the connections that you build today, whether you like them or you don't like those people today, is those connections that are going to work for you in the future. So be nice to everyone.
Okay.
Don't put people off.
Be nice to
Uh,
everyone. Be patient
and see how you can add value in other people's lives.
and look for adding value in other people's life. Yes.
I think the secret lies there.
Terrific. And Akhilesh, you've added a lot of lot of value to my life and definitely to
I
this.
hope I was not very
No, this is
out of
extremely
place.
helpful. Thank you, Akhilesh, for doing this. And the insights were absolutely terrific. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Vibha.